A large part of the Microsoft Business Applications user world does not understand the real power of Power Apps. Microsoft and its partners have steered users towards the Canvas side of Power Apps, seldom mentioning its much more capable model-driven Power Apps counterpart. This has led to an unfortunately narrow view of Power Apps in the eyes of most customers. Granted, you can create Canvas Power Apps over SharePoint or Excel with your existing Microsoft licenses, so the addressable market for Canvas Power Apps is significantly larger. Model-driven Power Apps, on the other hand, require an additional license for the user at a cost of either $5 or $20 per user per month, depending on the goal. Why would you pay more? As with most things, you get what you pay for. The often ignored truth about the Canvas Power Apps that so many customers are creating is that they will never be very powerful, as their data sources are typically not very powerful. The most powerful data source that Microsoft has today is Dataverse. Dataverse is at its core Azure-hosted SQL. Dataverse is what Microsoft's Dynamics business applications run on, including Dynamics 365 Sales, Customer Service, Field Service, Project Operations, AI Copilots, etc. You could think of it as a right brain, left brain scenario. While Canvas apps are the coloring book for creative types, hence the name Canvas, model-driven apps are like the technical book for your more analytical types, as in data model-driven. If you're ready to move beyond the land of Canvas and build apps that will make a real difference in your organization, then this series is for you. Don't worry, your Canvas skills will still have a supporting role, but you will learn that when Canvas apps are built with Dataverse as their data source, their power and value become far greater than you have understood so far. And when built within and around model-driven apps, which require Dataverse as their primary data source, the sky is literally the limit. By the way, I do not expect that you are a code developer. In fact, they may be at a disadvantage. First, let's zoom out. I challenge you to think beyond the utilitarian needs of your organization or industry for that matter. I want you to think much, much bigger than that. Not zeroing in on small aspects of minor pain, but zooming out to see the big picture. Zooming out in your thinking to where you can see your organization from one end to the other and from top to bottom. Try ignoring the small nuisances that, while easy to solve, do not create any measurable differences at the organizational level. Instead, try focusing on the big blocks. The world of business continues moving under, over, through, and around most organizations. Organizations are primarily driven by inertia. They were all created to go in a particular direction towards particular goals. Early success reinforces and propels organizations on their chosen paths. This inertia often becomes a heads-down mantra forward. We've all seen many examples of this mindset that herded many once successful organizations over the cliff. Kodak, Blockbuster, MySpace, Sears, BlackBerry, Toys R Us, and many more. Call it ignorance, arrogance, ego, or fear that drives this organizational inertia. But one thing is clear: competition and disruptors are always watching. Organizations become predictable and vulnerable. Their history of action or inaction to change telegraphs their future moves. There are several obvious industries that are facing disruptive change, but inertia is keeping many in those industries from taking action. Traditional retailers, cable TV providers, auto manufacturers, oil and gas companies, traditional media, banking and financial services, and many others are in the crosshairs. Whether they evolve and evade or freeze like a deer in the headlights will determine their fates. The greatest equalizer ever created was technology. Small organizations could not only compete with large ones, but the more nimble ones could even overtake them. Think Netflix versus Blockbuster, Airbnb versus hotels, Uber versus taxis, Tesla versus the auto industry, Spotify versus music stores, and that list also goes on. It has been said by many technology business leaders that every business is in the technology business. Their vested interest notwithstanding, they're not wrong. It really does not matter what your organization does, technology will make it or break it. If you don't agree with or understand that statement, I hope you retire quickly. Thankfully, I feel that most intelligent people understand this today, but that does not mean they know what to do with this information. Before you can change the fortunes of your organization for the better, you first need to know if you are a disruptor or a disruptee to determine if you are playing offense or defense. The usage of the tools will be similar either way, but the goals will be significantly different. Also, in either case, you will be focusing on weaknesses, yours to fix or theirs to exploit. Let's think about the disruptee first. In this case, you are playing defense. As an established organization, you have some disadvantages. For one thing, any glaring weaknesses are known to the outside. Crappy products, poor service, high prices, etc. While many organizations with these weaknesses can survive for a long time, they are an easy target for disruptors who are always looking. An easy-to-grasp example is Blockbuster versus Netflix. I clearly remember Blockbuster when they came to be. They were the disruptors. Back in the 80s, in particular, Hollywood saw a new revenue model with the VHS tape. You could buy a movie and own it forever. But in reality, how many times are you going to watch a particular movie? Blockbuster disrupted this model with the concept of renting these VHS tapes. Blockbuster would buy them, and customers could just rent them to watch for a fraction of the cost of buying. I remember going to the Blockbuster store and walking the aisle looking at all the VHS movies as I was returning the ones I had previously rented. Of course, I had to return them quickly to avoid the late fees. Blockbuster grew to 9,000 stores and was a Wall Street darling. They arrogantly thought they were invincible, a common trait of disruptees that causes them to take their eyes off the ball. In 2001, Blockbuster was faced with a technology disruption, leading to a $450 million expense to transition only 25% of their tapes to DVDs. Netflix launched as a DVD rental by mail service in 1997 with no late fees. They aimed directly at the weaknesses and disrupted Blockbuster and its copycats by eliminating the need to go to the store and having a larger selection. Blockbuster, still reeling from the DVD upgrade costs, at first tried to ignore and downplay this, but eventually created their own similar service. But it was too little too late. Had they reacted quickly, they could have kept Netflix from ever being. Instead, arrogance and ignorance sent them over the cliff. Netflix, unlike Blockbuster, was watching what was going on around them while they were riding high, in particular, YouTube's crude launch in 2003. With the growth of broadband, they launched their streaming service in 2007, which quickly replaced the rental by mail model. They literally disrupted themselves. In 2013, they took aim at Hollywood by launching House of Cards, an original series which started yet another trend. I expect Netflix to expand its streaming VR service next. Obviously, Netflix is a clear example of a disruptor, even disrupting themselves at one point, but now they are a target who needs to be ever watchful and nimble. Amazon and others have already followed their path. Sorry for the history lesson, but I wanted you to understand that no business is safe from the future, or even safe for now.